we really are. I mean, why do they call it scholarship? I mean, why do you always have to have a ship? It's because of maritime admiralty law. You have citizenship, sportsmanship, companionship. It's always a ship. It has to do with maritime admiralty, the law of water. That's why the Vatican is called the Holy See. Wake up and find out how the world really works. It's an extraordinary story of betrayal of the human race. When you find out how far gone the human race really is and how the entire human family has been manipulated, exploited, and dumbed down so that today the entire world is crawling on its knees to celebrities. My God, what a mess we present to our Creator. If there is a God who created us, he must be shaking his head, looking at us, 30-year-olds on skateboards, and sending grown men out to kill and war, and we calling them our boys. I mean, that's always been disgusting to me to refer to the military as our boys. Now, if you go out to a Little League game when you got 10 and 12-year-olds playing ball, that's our boys. But those are not boys in military. Those are men carrying guns.
As a disabled Vietnam vet, let me interject something here.
Yep.
As a disabled Vietnam vet and a petitioner of the black operations for many years, war is the stupidest thing that man in his endowed wisdom has ever created.
Yeah, but it's good for business.
Yeah, that's true. Bankers make money from both sides.
It's good for business. It sells a lot of products. I don't know.
Let me interject another question for you. Who answers to who, the Pope or the Queen?
Oh, I think that's pretty easy to prove. The Queen is subservient to the papacy, always. The Queen has always been subservient to the papacy because the Queen rules by divine right. Well, divine implies God has ordained her to be queen. Or any king, prince, or royalty in Europe, all will tell you that they rule by divine right. The divine right of kings. Well, who speaks for God in Europe if it isn't the Pope? And therefore, we have the term, all roads lead to Rome. So I don't care which one of the royal families of Europe, and they're all over Europe. They're like ants, like cockroaches. They're everywhere. But all royalty in Europe get their royalty from the papacy, from the Pope. And any time the Pope decides that you have no longer are needed, your divine right is no longer out there. You no longer have a divine right. And usually you'll be whacked like Princess Di. They'll just whack you and get rid of you. So when you understand the entire world that you live in operates like the mafia, that's all that the governments are as gangs. We got the Mexican gangs, the black gangs, the white gangs, and they're just gangs. We got the Chinese gang, and they're against the Russian gang. And the Russian gang are against the American gang, and it just depends on in the prison planet which one of the gangs is the strongest. And so gangs always control the flow of commodities and money and sex, drugs, and rock and roll and whatever else is out there that makes money, the gangs control. Well, so our gang happens to be controlling us and just about everything else on the planet. It's all gang wars. It's all commerce. It's all business. I mean, even the mafia would tell you that. Nothing personal here. It's just business. Somebody's going to run the planet. Somebody's going to run the planet.
Along with that, can you give us a 10-minute dissertation on the maritime admiralties, the birth certificate, and the number on the Social Security card?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have already heard me talking about that. I was talking about that some 30 years ago, and now it's finally out there, and people are finally understanding what I was saying, that there are only two kinds of law on the earth. There are only two things. There's actually only two things on the earth. There's only land and water. So there's two kinds of law, the law of the land and the law of water. People don't know that, but they use the term. They will say things like, well, that's the law of the land, never realizing you're making a distinction. Why? The law of the land as opposed to the law of the sea. And so the law of water is the law of money. That's why we say money goes through your hands like water. No, water is a word, is a word and a term which is used in maritime admiralty. That's why you have an admiral in the Navy. Why do you have a Navy? Because the body of a church is called a nave. The body of any church is called a nave. That's why you have a Navy. And the admiral, you'll need to look up the word admiral, see what it means and why he's an admiral of the Navy. And my God, and then when you see the Navy who lives on ships, like I said, scholarship and relationship and all kind and citizenship, your body, it breaks down this way. There are two things which are required for life: electricity and water. Those are the two things that you're required to have life: is electricity and water. So your body is a biological battery, and that's what causes your nerves to move. Your nerves cause the muscles to move. So you are a biological battery, and every now and then you get wore out, and you're just dead. You have to go to sleep to build up the battery. Well, the same thing is true in the human body that it is in a battery. You say, well, I'm just dead today. Well, why? Because you have no energy. And so the body is a biological battery, and we're told we're almost 90% water. So we're water and a battery, and we can reproduce life. And the human spirit is able to embody itself in a body and live because of those two things, electricity and water. Now, when you begin to look at how commerce works, first of all, you need to look up in a dictionary, a law dictionary. Go to a library and do something you've never done before. Read a book. Go to a library and get a law dictionary. Bouvier's law dictionary is the best of all. A lot of people think Black's Law Dictionary, but no, Bouvier is the better dictionary for law. And look up the word commerce, and it will tell you sex is commerce. And then look up the word Congress, because we're always talking about congressmen and Congress. Well, the word Congress is sex. So both Congress and commerce, the law books will tell you, is sex. Sex reproduces humans. That's why it's commerce. And it's a Congress. You have Chorus and Congress. So when you see that the whole system of commerce is based on sexual reproduction and it's producing products, and you are a maritime admiralty product because of water, because water represents money, and that's what you are. You're a walking human resource that makes money for corporations. It's a huge story. I mean, it would take us about 3 hours of me just sitting here going through this whole subject of how banks work. I mean, I've talked about it so many times. Where do you find a bank? Banks on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is a liquid asset. It's a current. And you can see the ebb and flow of the currency, through the international banks. But your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. The United States federal government is a privately owned corporation. It's in default right now, but it's a privately owned corporation. It's a company. Well, hell, anybody knows if you have a corporation, anybody can have a corporation. Anybody. But if you have a corporation, the first thing you have to have of any company or corporation is you have to have a president. And you have to have a vice president and a secretary-treasurer. That's just corporate law. Well, today we got a president and a vice president, secretary-treasurer, and people think he's the president of America. No, he's the president of the United States. Look it up in a dictionary, a law dictionary. United States is a privately owned company. It's a corporation. And all corporations have to have a president. So he's not the president of America. He's the president of a corporation which is incorporated in the 1860s called United States Corporation. It's a privately